Hi, everyone. Thank you, Obehi, for having me on your show today. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Hello, and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi Ewanfo, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
I am a men's love relationship coach, and I'm also a certified hypnotherapist. And I know this sounds pretty crazy because, people say you're a woman coaching men, and I think, it kind of alarms a lot of people. But, I'm all for male to male therapy. Absolutely. I have nothing against that. But I sort of come from a female perspective. And of course, when you want to know about a woman, what better person to ask but a woman, right? So, and I'm going to give it to you, pretty much straight from the horse's mouth as to how women feel. I definitely, can speak from a female perspective. So when I coach men, of course, I'm coming from the perspective of a female and how a female interprets, things and how a female feels and all the whole, emotional intelligence that comes with it, basically. And yeah, that's why I do what I do. Simply because I am a female, and yes, I have had my share of relationships as well. And of course, my experiences have actually, really inspired me to even do this even more for men, because I love men. I love my brothers, and I just feel for them sometimes because they do have a hard time navigating through relationships. So, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense, and also it's very interesting at the line that you are trailing in the relationship, having to coach men, and in relationship, of course, at the end of the day, everything about it I think is very important because depending on how you look at it, it is actually the web upon which we need to navigate in our life. Nobody is going to be able to do it alone, so we need one another, irrespective of the angle from which you are seeing it. All right, here in this podcast, we try to know the people that we are talking with, so that at least, like I said before in the beginning of the episode, look at it like we are two in a coffee bar, just having a coffee, and we are just talking. The only difference is that we are recording it. All right, now help us to know you, your background, where are you coming from, and tell us a little bit about your childhood. Let's start also about that.
My childhood. Okay. Well, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I was born here. I was born in Australia, but both my parents are Italian. So I have Italian origin. So I grew up in a very, strict Sicilian family, and living kind of two mixed cultures, because at home I was very Italian, and outside of home I had to, blend in and mix and socialize with the Australian way of living. So, of course, I've had, that upbringing. I had a really good childhood. I have two beautiful parents, and I think, having two parents that really love each other, very strong, have a very strong relationship. To me, I always looked up at that, and very inspiring to look at. I mean, now my parents are in their 80s and they're about 62 years of marriage together. So that says a lot about being together and being strong. So, but how I started all this, my first profession, actually, I was a hairstylist. I worked in a salon, and I worked in a salon that, catered for both men and women. So it was a unisex salon. And of course, in a salon, what do you hear? You hear a lot of conversation. And usually, it's always around relationships. If anyone had something to say about their wife or about, their husband, mainly women, were more vocal and more in sharing about their intimate situations than men, I must say. So there I began the journey of just being a great listener. We were told in the salon to always be a great listener and never give advice. even though I think we are like psychologists half the time because we hear everything, but, we're underpaid as stylists. So from there, I moved on and worked, became a personal trainer. So I worked in a gym, and, what used to happen was I used to, coach and train women and men, and the women again would come to me about their personal problems about relationships, their own relationship with their other half. They couldn't, understand. Well, they'd say, he doesn't understand me. He just doesn't get me. I give him all the ideas, but he just doesn't get what I'm saying. So there'd be a lot of this going on, which again, I would listen, be a really good sounding board, but not really give advice because I wasn't, fit enough to give advice back then. Whereas the men, which was really quite interesting, the men would come to me and say, Stefania, you're a woman. What do you think? What do you think I should do? So they would come to me not complaining like the women. The women would be more, vocal and more emotionally invested in expressing what they were going through. The men would want to know snippets of what should I do, which was different, right? And I get it because men don't really, get together like women and just share. So from there, my journey began, said, you know what, I want to go further and become a coach. So I studied further and became a coach, and then specialized just in relationships because I love people and I love relationships. I love being in love myself. So to me, it really intrigued me what really made relationships work, what didn't make them work. And from there, I went a little further and I studied and became a hypnotherapist. So the reason for that was because I really wanted to go deeper with the mind. And I knew that, relationships was a really complicated thing, but if we could just study the mind a little bit deeper, how could we make relationships work? And of course, that was a whole nother can of worms, by studying the brain and understanding why there are so many issues in relationships. Why do we struggle? Why do we, jump from a relationship to relationship? And I think that was when I really found a method, a gateway to really help my clients, because the subconscious mind, as you know, is a really, very powerful part of the mind, and it stores a lot of information, depending on how old you are too. That subconscious mind is formed between the ages of 0 and 8 years old when we're young. And a lot of what has been inbuilt, injected in us by our parents or our guardians or, social people in our lives as we're growing up, does have an effect on how we interact as adults, particularly when it comes to relationships. So I know that was a big, long version of why I do what I do, but yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. And why men? Going back to that, because I coached women for a while, but it was the men that I felt that needed more enlightenment in the sense that there's, so much help out there for women, which is great. But I really wanted to come home for, as I said, my brothers from a female perspective and, some of the experiences I had. And, I bring it home real and raw without, being too, with uplifting and empowering men, because I think as the years have gone on, I can really see there has been a little bit of a shift in gender roles. I'm not generalizing, but in some cases it has, and it's just the way it is. And I think men have unfortunately been pushed in a corner in some cases, and, they've been, I guess, brought up to think, well, we can't express, we can't cry, we can't feel, but in actual fact, they do. I mean, you're a man. I'm sure you do, Obehi,
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
with
sure,
me
sure.
in some cases.
We are not plastics.
No, no. And it's really sad. And this is where the healing comes with what I do and how I work with my clients and the process that I take them through, which is non-invasive. And yeah, it definitely does make a big difference.
I'm still trying to understand you now. Say in the year when you were 16, 17, 18, 20. Tell me about
Mhm.
your understanding of relationship in those years. In those because
Mhm.
those are very important years in our life. Tell me about that.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I think that is a very tender age, to be in relationships, of course. What can I say? I started dating very early, I guess. Well, early. I was 16, and I did remain with this one person for 15 years. I married and had a good relationship, a good marriage, but of course it ended. And it didn't end in a bad way. We actually became friends. We actually became more friends, like brother and sister relationship, I guess, than actually being, like lovers or, growing in a way that fortified each other. So, so from there, I think that's where my real journey began of, really discovering and searching and understanding myself, obviously, to then be able to have someone else in my life.
Before you were saying that our of course, making reference to the subconscious mind, that between the age of 0, of course, till about 8, that is where we begin to, of course, to accumulate most of these images in our head that, of course, it us controlling our life in many ways.
Mhm.
So, in terms of relationship, those years where we are mature now, okay, let's say sexually mature now, okay, you are 16, you're 14, 15, 16, in this teenage age,
Mm.
how much attention are we supposed to play there? Because I want to believe that those things that we do in terms of relationship have a way of influencing us even as we grow to more mature adult now. What should we pay attention to in our teenage years?
In our teenage years. Okay. So, I mean, we don't know because we're just growing. There's just so much going on. There's so much stimulus going on, particularly in those teenage years. But what is really important to understand, and you can probably look back as an adult now and say, well, maybe that's why I was doing the way I was doing this, and maybe this is why I was reacting this particular way. But don't forget who was in our lives, particularly between the ages of 0 and 7, right? Did we grow up in a family unit? Was mum and dad together? Were they separated? Did you grow up just with one parent? Was it mother? Was it father? All that comes to play. All that has a big influence. So, today there's a large portion of divorces, right? And I'm not sure what the statistics are at currently, but there's a large amount of children growing up with single parents, right? And if majority of them are growing up with a mother, so mum's going to have to be mum, dad. She has to probably work. She's trying to bring money home to support her children. Or possibly she's even dating, So when a young child is in that kind of, I guess, environment, he or she's been influenced a lot by what's going on. If he or she is looking up to how they're interacting in their every day-to-day life, how are they surviving? They're all habits and behaviors that you will take on as a child because you think that's just normal. That's the way life is.
I'm trying to pay attention now. What is the difference between it? Of course, we are coming to your coaching business just now because I want us to dive a little bit deeper into also your style of hypnosis, the men you deal with, and all that. But I'm still trying to sort of build a context around the what you do, no? So what are the specific difference between a child that grew up in a more functioning home than a child that grew up with a single parent in terms of the relationship that this child who will eventually become adult should have? I'm looking at what are the influence of this, maybe in a more specific way.
Okay, well, it depends, Obehi, because that child that grows up in a single parent environment, I mean, it could be very loving. Mum or dad can be very loving. He or she still has that interaction with the other parents, right? There's no abuse. There's no trauma. That child hasn't grown up seeing, traumatic situations that can traumatize that child. Now, there could be a child that grows up with alcoholic parents, for example, or addiction to drugs, or they have grown up in that environment and it's been abusive. He or she has seen abusive parents towards each other. That's all trauma. That is all trauma which will be stored in the subconscious and also in the cellular memory of your body. So, of course, as an adult, that's all there. And then what happens is something may trigger you in a relationship and you may freeze, you may run, you have that fight, flight mind, which will make you react. So all those things come to play. There's not one or the other. You can't say one's better than the other. You may grow up in a single parent environment, but still have a very loving, supportive family structure with grandparents, uncles and aunties. Mum and dad are still quite amicable. So that's great, right? But there are some that are less fortunate in growing up in that kind of environment. And that's where that trauma is still living very vividly in our minds, whether we're conscious of it or not.
And you are going to have to deal with it at the point, no? Or it's going to cripple you, or you're going to have to control, of course, look for a way to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
and the thing is,
yes,
I just want to add, a lot of us don't know that. You don't know that because you've not gone down, really delving and trying to heal that part of you. Because what happens is we only look at what happened in our last relationship, and that person was so narcissistic to us, or that person was so toxic, and maybe you remember the one before that. So we're carrying all this and we're only looking so far back. But what really needs healing is the root cause, which is often when we're children.
All right. Okay, now this is understood. So take us through to your specific concentration of work. What do you actually concentrate on? We know that now you work with men predominantly, but what do you do with them in more specific way?
Well, I work in different areas, so it can be relationships. I mean, a lot of the, pretty much 99.9% of the time, it's self-relationship, okay? Because if you haven't got your self-relationship right, you're unable to really have a good relationship with anyone else. So self is what's really important. But, I help people with anger issues as well. I help people with stress, overcoming anxiety. What else? There's smoking, quit smoking, nail biting, sports performance. There's a number array of things that clients will come to me for. And then, of course, as you peel back the layers, it'll go back to the self, if that makes sense.
Of course it does. But of course, I'm not going to let you go just like that.
I want to go deeper.
Yeah, of course. I want you to explain this self-love, because there is a lot of argument around the question of self-love, to learn to love yourself. And this is because in most of the cases, the society we live in, whether we are looking at the Western society or even in other society, if we look at African society also, this idea of sacrifice for others is well elevated. But to love yourself, to really treasure yourself, a little is said about that. So now, when you talk about self-love,
Mhm.
what do you really mean by that? How do you learn to sort of go against the norm now and not feel that people are going to accuse you of being selfish or things like that? So tell me about the basis of self-love.
Okay, so that's a really interesting topic. Okay, and people have different interpretations. Obviously, my interpretation may not be everyone else's, but self-love is all encompassing of loving yourself, that you respect yourself, you're able to say no, you're able to set healthy boundaries, that you are not, in some cases, a people pleaser. Sometimes when you're not setting healthy boundaries, you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Self-love is also looking after the body, loving the body enough that you feed it good foods, you drink lots of water, you nourish it, you exercise, you look after your temple. But I have a very I guess a spiritual background, so I always say, part of loving yourself is also part of loving God. I mean, for some it's God, our creator, connecting to the universe, whatever it may be. But knowing that, whoever created us loved us enough to want us to also look after ourselves, if that makes sense. Now, when someone says, you're being selfish because maybe you are loving yourself, there may be a situation where you may have been a yes person and people pleasing others all the time. And sometimes that can happen in relationships, and he or she may say, oh, you've become selfish now. And that may be just because you're now saying, well, I want to put a little bit of me first before I'm always giving to you. Does that make sense? So that other person may have a perspective of you being selfish, but that may not be the case at all. It's their perspective.
All right. Now, say uh, there are this individual, of course, there are so many people who fall into this category of not loving themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But because of what you do, which is relationship,
Mm-hmm.
what is the impact of you, or is it the impact, the effect of you not loving yourself? Say maybe you are the one who need a good relationship, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't love yourself. What
Mm-hmm.
does that translate in the relationship that you can have?
If you're not loving yourself, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. It can create a lot of problems, a lot of problems. I mean, I was speaking to a client today where he was just giving his all, giving his everything to this woman. And it just, he said, Stefania, it just feels like it's never enough. There's nothing I can do that's going to make her happy. There's nothing I can do that's going to please her, because the more I give, the more I feel like she's taking, and I just am exhausted. And that's exactly what happens when you give so much that you're not giving to yourself. You're over exhausting yourself, that you have no more for yourself. It's like a cup, right? You're pouring so much into that other person's cup. What are you pouring into your cup? You run dry. Your love tank, I talk about a love tank, we all have a heart, and if that tank isn't filled by yourself first, you can't expect someone else to fill your love tank. Sure, it's lovely to have someone else, love you, admire you, appreciate you. That's all part of it. But you need to be complete yourself, and that other person needs to be complete. He or she has to be complete. So when you come together, you're two complete people. You're not taking and being, that attachment style dependent, that you're feeling like he can only make me happy or she can only make me happy. You have to both be happy on your own, and then come together and share that love and share that happiness and grow together.
All right. That's great. All right. Now, are there some things that are responsible for why some people might not love themselves? which of course then translate into other problem, because if you don't love yourself,
Mhm.
I agree with you 100% that you're going to have problem even loving somebody, because you
Mm.
don't know what love means. For you to
Mhm.
know what love means, you need to start by loving yourself. Charities actually begins at home. You can't say
Yes.
you are good, you are not good to yourself, you are not good to the people around you. To whom are you good then? So, what are those things that are actually responsible for why someone might not love his or herself?
Um, well, it all boils down to the emotions that we carry. You know, there may be a lot of guilt, there may be a lot of shame, there may be a lot of fear, anger. You know, they say you can't be happy and be angry at the same time. You can't love and be in fear at the same time. So, you know, when we're in that low vibration, when we're vibrating at a low frequency, we're hanging out down here, and we need to let go and heal those emotions to then be able to raise your vibration and raise your frequency to feel more grateful, feel the happiness, feel the gratitude. When you're struggling and you're living with those emotions and you're drowning in those low vibe energy emotions, that's when you're not loving yourself. And that's when it's hard to love someone else, because you're struggling with those emotions. So you're unable to give to yourself. How are you going to give to someone else?
Yeah, that is important. That is important. All right. Now, you deal with men. You are a coach for men, so that they can not only find love, but they can also retain love. No.
Mm,
In this case, men in love with women. I think that is what we are talking about here. All
yes.
right. What should men know about women so that they can have better relationship with women?
Oh, okay. If I get $1 for every question I ask about that. Well, I think what's really important, foremost is communicating and understanding what your woman's uh, way of communicating. You know, have you heard of the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, which is an excellent book, and I really recommend every man read it. It talks about 5 love languages. We love in different ways, okay? And predominantly we have one primary love language. And the idea is to know your love language and to know your partner's love language. So the love languages quickly are like appreciation, appraisal, where your partner likes to hear, thank you, you look great, you look lovely, that t-shirt looks great on you. So it's all words of affirmations, right? Then you have gifts, where your partner feels loved if you're buying them gifts. And it doesn't mean expensive gifts, it can be just the thought of being given a gift. Then you have service, where you feel loved if your partner gets your clothes ready, irons your clothes, cooks your favorite meal. That's gift of service. And then we have quality time. You feel extremely loved if your partner loves hanging out with you, even if it's just on the couch. You just love doing things together, but you're together, okay? And the last one, which is a really important one, is physical touch, okay? Now, I always say to men, physical touch doesn't mean sex, okay? It's a whole different thing. Sex is one thing, physical touch is physical touch, which means, holding hands, brushing against her and, holding her shoulders as you walk past, lots of kisses, physical touch, okay? So that is what we talk about when it's physical touch. And of course, that can escalate to be more intimate and into a sexual encounter, but it doesn't mean just sex, all right? So once you know that about your partner, your woman, and you know how to communicate that love language to her, you will see things change dramatically, okay? It's like this. I say to people, Obehi, it's like two people speaking two different languages. You have an Italian okay? And you have a Chinese. And the Chinese doesn't speak Italian, Italian doesn't speak English. How are they going to communicate? I mean, love is an international language. I mean, it doesn't, you know, how many people have actually connected? I mean, I know a few where they've not spoken the same language, but they've loved, you know, tremendously. Their love is really strong because they've made that effort to learn the language, but they've learned to understand each other's love language. Okay, because you may have, and this is a common scenario, okay, this, I'll give you a perfect example. The husband is the breadwinner. He brings home food, he brings back, you know, the bacon, provides his wife with everything, the children, buys her lots of gifts, lavishes her with everything, and she's still not happy. She still doesn't feel loved. He doesn't love me. He doesn't. Why? Because her love language is affirmations. Maybe she wants quality time. He has no time with her just because he's so busy making money, but he doesn't spend the quality time. So she doesn't feel loved. She doesn't feel valued. She doesn't believe he loves her. And that's where the root cause, and then you start having arguments, have disagreements, a communication breakdown, and you have a big mess. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. All right, Stefania. Now, when do people fall in love? I don't know if actually that is the correct thing for it. Okay, when do people then get engaged under the entanglement of love? I want to believe that, okay, if you have maybe started with this relationship when you were much younger, you will know a lot of things about the other person. But of course, you still will not know everything about him or her.
Correct.
You're still going to know more as you grow old, as you learn to stay with each other. So what I'm actually going with this is how much effort is actually required on the part of both to understand each other. Because I look at it that it's a game that you don't play one day. You continuously play it. And sometimes it continuously changes while you are playing it. So tell me about the how we as individuals were supposed to do to make sure that that it's not, you don't have to do it for me. It's also, I also have a responsibility. I have a stake in it. You are not the one that will make it work. Both of us will make it work. Speak to that a little bit.
Right. Okay. So it's interesting. You called it a game. Okay. I say to people, a relationship is like a business. It's like a business. You have a business. I have a business. You have to invest in that business. You have to work it. You have to understand it. You have to put time into it. And the same is a relationship. If you're not investing time, if you're not investing emotions, if you're not taking, you know, those extra precarious things to understand your woman, and vice versa, the woman understanding her man, you're not going to grow together, right? And you're right. When you first meet someone, and even if you're with them for, 3 years, 4 years, and then you decide to marry, even within another 5 years from then, there's more that you're going to learn about that person. And not only that, we're changing. We're not the same as what we were 5, 10 years ago. We've grown. We're evolving. Are we evolving together, or are we evolving separately? Are we communicating our feelings, or are we just having expectations on each other? So, all this is so important. So yes, it's like a business. You have to invest in that business. You have to invest in your relationship. A plant, you need to water it for it to grow. Anything, it needs energy. And if you're not doing that, it will just stop. Your business will fail. The plant will die. The relationship will drift apart. So that's my explanation. It definitely needs work. It's not you get married or you live together or you get engaged and everyone's happy and we live happy ever after. and are you married, Obehi? I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm married. I'm married.
Yeah, you have a couple of children. You have children.
Yeah. I've got a child. I've got a son who is 4 years old. But I just left him in school before we started this conversation.
Right. Okay.
I think
So
it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
yes, of course, of course. And don't you have to, you have to invest time with that child, with your wife, together, separately, have baby time, then have wifey time, and then have your time too. You need a balance with all that. And she
Yeah, yeah,
needs
yeah,
her time as well with you and also away from you.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, me and my wife, we are continuously learning because the time I met my wife, when I proposed that I was going to marry her, I proposed to her. I told her, listen, I am not a perfect person. I've never
Mhm.
been married before. In this journey, we are going to continuously learn. So a couple of times, my wife have told me how much she loved that. No? That I'm open to you. I'm not telling you that I'm the best man in the world. I know everything. Just come. I will treat you as an angel. No, I and you are in this relationship together, and we are the
Correct.
one that will make it work based on our effort. Don't expect that I'm going to be perfect. I don't expect that you are going to be perfect. But let's respect each other and let's learn from each other and let's grow. And it will be helping us, and I believe you continue to help us.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something, that's a real gem what you just said there. I'm not perfect, okay? We're not all perfect. We're not born knowing everything. And as we're growing and evolving, we are learning, we're experiencing and trying to be a better version of ourselves, hopefully. But I went to this seminar once and I'll never forget this one gentleman, and he was a coach, and he said he'd been married for 25 years at the time. And he said, there's one thing, he said, I've learnt to say, or not to say, he said, to my wife. And he said that one thing is to say, I know. I know everything about her. I know everything about you. No. He said, you never ever know everything about that one person. Doesn't matter. It's a whole lifetime. You can spend a whole lifetime with that person. You may understand her, behaviors and her habits and things like that, but you never ever know. You've got to keep that curiosity. That's that mystery of not knowing, because there's always surprises. Do you know what I mean? And that too keeps that spark in that relationship. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, thank you so much. You said that. In fact, I was just thinking about that, no? Because if I know everything about you now and you know everything about me and we're in a
Mm,
relationship, that is going to be very flat as a relationship, no? Because there
yeah.
are no surprises anymore. I don't have anything to learn because if I already know, I think knowledge is for those who do not know. Because if you already know, what do you have to know? Nothing. You already know. So you know all this time.
Yes. And boring. It's boring,
Yeah,
like, you know. And they, as humans, we're curious. We want to know. We like, once we know, it's just like, oh, we move on. So you've got to keep that kind of spark and curiosity going. And I think that's also very important, being able to ask questions and be curious about, women love to talk in general. So as men are probably not as chatty as women. Not all, some men are. But, for those men that aren't real talkers, I always say, try and be curious, be a bit childlike, to want to know. I wonder what if, I'm curious to know what makes you think that, things like that, and will spark an interest in a woman, because she thinks then, oh, he really wants to know what I'm thinking. He's really interested in how I process things. And that in itself, that very simple question, is very appealing to a woman. Very
Absolutely.
appealing, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I was saying before, like a game. Okay, let's look at it as a business this time because according to you. Now,
Oh, when
you
I
see,
say business, I don't mean like, money, monetary stuff. I'm talking energy, because we do. There are people that invest so much in their businesses, time and money and energy. And what are they doing with their relationships? Not the same. And yet a relationship, when two people are together and they're a strong team, that's like a fort. You know what I mean? You, both of you together can, build castles together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I would say that there are it's on culture, no? In my culture, for example, I'm coming
Mm,
from Assam, which is generally in many parts of Nigeria actually. Uh, in the time past, when you want to go into a relationship, I mean
mhm,
a fruitful relationship in terms of marriage, it is never something of between you and just your spouse. It is
mhm,
between your family and his family or her family. In that
mhm,
a lot of investigation need to be done. It is not necessarily based on your love, whether you love him or her. That is not the question. The, the,
mhm,
the, the bond of the relationship then, the bond of marriages was not based on love. Because they know, society know that this love that they're talking about is something very small in most of the cases because you don't know yet what you are getting into as a young person. But
mm,
the adult, your parent, your grandparent now, they know what you are going to face. They want to find out, they investigate. Because when you are in love, you don't ask certain questions. But your
mm,
parents are not in love. So they are going to ask the questions like, who is this family? Where are they coming from? What are
mm,
their genealogy? Are they thieves? Do they abuse people? Are they liars? Because some of these things people know because we live among people. There is no way you can hide your life. Because now, if we base relationship on that we know at least a bit of what we are going to encounter, this is what we are going into, the
mm,
rate of divorce will be very low. You get it? Because it doesn't mean that there is not going to be problem. There will still be problem. There are problems everywhere. But when there
mm.
are problems, the family will sit down together to resolve the problem.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that you that is getting involved in a relationship now, you don't really know everything about the man yet. The man doesn't know everything about you. But how
Mm.
that love become interesting is that you continue to discover it one piece at a time in the whole of your marriage. So I think if we know everything about it in the beginning, we have very little to discover, and that love is going to be very flat as it were. What do men often complain to you about women?
Mm. Oh, wow. Well, it really depends because I have men that come to me because they're looking for women. They're, finding it hard to date. So that would be one set of problems. Then you have, men that come to me that are in a relationship and are struggling to understand or, create a strong, more solid foundation with their other half. And then I have men, I have a lot of men actually. The main areas where men have suffered and are frustrated because they are finding that they're attracting a lot of toxicity, a lot of toxic, narcissistic, they call it narcissistic type women, where they're constantly drawing to them women that uh, are using them for money, for example. I get a lot of that where men feel like they're just money providers. So it really varies. For some, it may be they just don't understand today's modern woman, which I think what happens is there's a lot. They call her the alpha woman. Have you heard of the alpha woman?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So the alpha woman, supposedly is, the strong, independent woman that doesn't need a man. She'll kind of like come across like she doesn't need a man. She's probably got her own business or she's very successful in her career. But yet she's very lonely. She's not got a partner, but yet she's really longing for someone. But because of her set of hurts and her past trauma, she's got her wall up, right? So here comes, Jack, for example, who just is totally in love with her, but she's not making headway to allow him in, and he's struggling. Well, how do I get to this woman? How do I break down these walls that she's built around her? So there's a lot of that. And again, we work with what's going on with him, and to see things in a different light, have a different mindset, look at things outside the box, and also get uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because sometimes, even for men, it can be quite daunting. They lose confidence if they come across a real strong woman that just like, what seems like she's rejecting him, but she's also playing this little game of, I don't want to just look like I'm easy either. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a whole lot of things that come to play. And these poor guys, they just feel totally bamboozled, because like, she's showing me signs that she likes me, but then all of a sudden she's gone cold. What's up with that? Do you know what I'm saying?
All right. Now this is very interesting.
I don't know whether you have ever experienced anything like that, but women come with a whole set of moods. I mean, they they have their monthly cycles. They got maybe some have got children, family issues. There's a whole lot of things going on, so a whole lot of things can be influencing her. And if that guy's really attracted to her and she's giving mixed signals, but then when he backs off, she's like chasing him again, it can be a little overwhelming, stressful, frustrating for a man. And for some, they just lose hope, or they just give up. They say, what the heck? Why do I need a woman like that for? Who stresses me out?
This game that the women play awful, sometimes it is very confusing to some men, in that it's all about communication. Of course, communication, not in verbal terms, is the signal that you are sending out, because the signal you are sending out is not for you, it's for other people. Because if you are sending a signal to yourself, it is useless. You get it, no? So this alpha woman, let's put that like that, no? Who is sending a signal to the male, to the woman, to the man, that maybe she's interested. Because if she never sent a signal of, okay, where I'm available, where you can try, most men will not really try. Okay, some men will still try, though, even though they know that she's occupied, they can still try. I know there are this category, but I'm talking of the good Johnson now, who need a woman, and he see that this woman is available, and this woman send the signal that she's available, and he approach her, but she get cold after she has sent the signal. So I'm trying to understand, is it that she is confused, or it is the man that is not reading the correct signal?
Well, it could be. It could be that he's not approaching her in a way that she feels comfortable, because sometimes, and I can say this from experience. I have sometimes found myself being, really, because I'm a pretty happy, jovial person, and happy and always smiling. And sometimes my smiles can be misinterpreted for like, oh, she really, really likes me. Do you know what I mean? And it may not be that at all. So if you are confused, I often say to men, just let her know how you feel, or let her know that, I'm a bit confused. I feel like, you kind of like me. You've given me these signals, but then, open, clear communication and speaking from your heart is what's going to get you the answers, rather than assuming and presuming and playing these games. Do you know what I'm saying?
You have come to this woman who sort of gave you this, it looked like flowers, no? You go to the reason you are attracted to certain flower is because you see the color, but the flower is actually telling you something, it's communicating something to you. Oh, I'm beautiful. Oh, come admire me. Then you go there, this is good, no? That is communication. You are just talking to nature. Nature is talking to you, you are talking back, no?
Right.
So if this woman sent this signal, and you think that she's talking to you, and you go there and she doesn't respond to you, could it be also that because she doesn't want to fall cheap, maybe she's interested? Because when this man goes, she will probably send a similar signal, and then sometimes this man can get confused. I've gotten experience like that sometime, no? I think most men have to. That you have, okay, yes, can we? And she, no, that is not what I mean. But she went to repeat the same thing again. We sort of tell you that, okay, But she said no. Why is she? I'm sort of trying to understand the web around that. If
Right.
is she just playing, or she doesn't know what she's doing?
Right. Well, that's where, you have to be quite, go with your gut instinct as well, because different signs will give you different interpretations. But, she could be playing a little hard to get. It's as simple as that. Okay. She may be just like, I'm just going to, let's see how keen he really is. So she's being sweet, but then she's being firm. She's not being nasty. If she's being sweet and then being nasty, well, that's a different story. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas if she's being sweet but being firm, and you're, as a male, he's still keen, well, that's going to keep him interested, isn't it? It's a bit like the chase, isn't it? Really, ultimately, men are hunters. Men are they've always been hunters, and I believe they'll always be hunters as well. Do you know what I mean? They like the chase, they like the stimuli. Not all, okay? In some cases, some men are a little bit more reserved and they like the woman to make the move, right? Because things are changing too these days. So, it's not one size fits all. You just have to learn to be comfortable in your own skin. This is what I teach men, to have, unbreakable, unshakable confidence within themselves that they can approach any woman and not be perturbed and feel rejected when she does say no. Do you know what I mean? This is what's going to make him more attractive and to a woman, because ideally, most women, they want a confident man. They want a man that is unshakable with confidence. You know what I'm saying? Not arrogant, confident, which is a difference.
So that you are in this web now, we're talking of how to trap harder, or I don't know if that is the right word now. You are chasing how to eventually catch her. Let's put it that way, no?
Oh, yeah. Attract her.
Well, okay, yeah. But I'm talking about the end of the day.
So that you can actually get her get that woman, like make her yours. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's right. What I was looking for. How to make that woman yours. She's playing hard to catch. And you, of course, you understand that she's playing the game, and you are also playing the game. I look at it as a perfect game, no?
Right.
So, what kind of strategy would you recommend for this man who knows that this woman needs her, but she's not going to give up in the fight quite easily? What are the strategy? Because now you are a woman. I think this is where it becomes very interesting for the men who come to you for coaching.
Right. Well, there's a combination of things, right? As I said earlier, I said, be curious, really, take the time to get to know her and, have those intimate conversations, because again, a woman loves to converse. Emotional connection is what's going to draw that woman closer to you. Okay. Emotional connection. So, knowing her likes, knowing what she likes, what she doesn't like, and using all the different 5 love languages to see which one she responds the most to, whether it's quality time, whether it's physical touch, whether it's gifts, whether it's gift of service, doing little things for her. But what I always say, and I really reiterate this, is humor. Okay. Women love to laugh. Okay. So if you can make a woman laugh, you're halfway there really quickly. So really keeping it light, be you, and, don't try hard to make her laugh, but just, use your own, what makes you laugh? Being jovial, making her laugh. And of course, don't overdo it with what I call love bombing her. Do you know what a love bombing means?
How do you do that? Explain it.
Okay, so some people say, "Oh my God, he's too much. He's just love bombing me," right? And it's like when it's everything is perfect and she's the best, and there's always this, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, you do this amazing. You're beautiful. You're this. You're that." A shower with all these gifts, and it's just overload for a woman, and she'll sometimes. It's like, what's he up to? He's just too good to be true. Do you know what I mean? So space your love, space your gifts, space your time with her. Keep her also a little bit engaged. Don't always text the same thing. Don't always text at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Keep some mystery. Keep it curious. Keep the spice going.
That's good. That's good. And that's good enough.
And I also say this, for married couples, have date nights, go out and do things that you used to do before you're married, where you made time for each other. And particularly if you've got kids, because, kids can take a lot of your time away from each other. So, get someone to look after your child and spend that quality time. Write some love notes. Women love handwritten notes that are, you're writing some sweet words genuinely from, your heart to hers. I think, and hiding them in places where she may find them in her makeup bag, or, in her car seat, or stick it on her windshield in front of I don't know, there's plenty of ways of doing it, but it's those little things that will just, make her feel fuzzy inside, because, you're taking the time to do something for her. You're thinking about her, and that's what's special.
That's beautiful. All right, Stefania, tell me, how did you know that this was going to be your work? I'm not saying when you started. Now you have started, you are doing it. But how did you get a conviction that this was going to be your job?
Oh, okay. So I guess what happened, I think I told you, I lived in Italy for 7 years. Which was 2 years ago. I've been back in Australia for 2 years now. But when I was living in Italy, I was not only coaching, but I was also teaching English. Okay. And English, because I'm an English teacher as well. So I would have a lot of students, I had predominantly more men come to me for English classes than I did women. And believe it or not, I would have men that would come to me, and we would have conversations in English. Some was grammar, but a lot of them were, conversation, because there are levels of having conversations. And again, conversations that would evolve around relationships. And I really felt there was this real, oh my God, I think there's a calling here, because again, men would say, Stefania, what do you think? I'm stuck. And then I had this one client, he was a lawyer, right? And he'd been, having lessons for about a couple of months. And he was really enthusiastic and coming to me. But then I noticed that he was not as enthusiastic with his lessons. So I said to him, is it your lesson? Is it something that you're not happy with, the way I'm teaching? And he said, no, Stefania, no, that's not at all. I love the way you teach English and everything. He says, I'm having a bit of problems at home. I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear. And he said, maybe you can help me. He said, I don't want to talk to my family. I don't want to talk to my friends, because it's too personal, and I don't want them to know. And I said, okay. It's I do have that, I think, invisible sign on my face where, tell me your story. I used to have that when I was doing hairdressing as well. People would just open up to me. And he started sharing how, he was with his wife, and they just had a baby. The baby was 3 months, and he and his wife were just drifting apart. And being Italian, the in-laws were really settling into the house, trying to help her with the baby. And he then just said, I feel like I've just been a sperm donor. She had the baby, they used my sperm, everyone's happy, the baby's arrived, but now, I've been pushed to the side. And I said, wow, okay. I said, and then that's when I said to him, look, I am studying, because at the time I was studying more life coaching skills and relationships. As I said, maybe we can use our English lessons to help you improve your relationship, He said, oh, would you, Stefania? That would be great. Well, within about 6 weeks, I mean, he was a changed man. I can't begin to tell you, Obehi, what had transformed. He was more confident in his own skin. His relationship with his wife had come closer. He was able to set healthy boundaries to still respect his in-laws, but have them, respect his boundaries. And his relationship with his wife had taken a total different turn. And I think it was at that point that I said, you know what, I'm not coaching, men or women here, but who do I want to help? After that experience, I think that really moved me. I said, yeah, this is who I really want to help. I really want to help men. And, and this has been honest too. In the time, I had also had, previous exes, which I was still speaking to, and they had moved on with, other women in their lives, and they would still come back to me and say, Stefania, what do you think I should do? And I thought, wow, that's crazy. My exes are coming back to me for help with their current girlfriends. And I knew that was my calling. It was like a clear sign from God to say, you really need to be working with men. And that's why I chose with men. And it's just blossomed from there. Yeah. And of course, the Gentleman's Square, the how that all came about was in Italy. When I lived in Syracuse, the Duomo, of course, La Piazza, in Piazza, there's always men sitting everywhere, playing cards or doing something. They're all congregating together. And that one morning when I was walking through the piazza, I said, oh my God, look at all these men here. La Piazza degli Uomini, I said, which means the Gentleman's Square. And I translated it, the Gentleman's Square. I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to call my business, the Gentleman's Square. So that's how it all kind of came together. Yeah, it was just beautiful.
That's lovely. That's lovely. It's really deeply rooted, though. All right. Now, tell me, Stefania, what is the thing that you really like most in this your relationship work with men?
What is it that I like most?
Yes.
Oh, well, I love the transformation. I can't, I have such a deep passion for seeing one person, start at this point and then arrive at another point, totally transformed mind, spirit and physical. Because being a personal trainer, and, I'm quite well educated in nutrition as well, I help them with that. So when a man comes to me for help, and it might be just mindset, I help them come together and bring the balance with their bodies, what they're eating, which is going to give them, brain food. I call it, what food are you eating? Because that's going to be brain food, and energy for your body, getting them into shape, having their mindset, shift, and having relationships that they're now enjoying their relationship with themselves and with, their existing woman or with new women. For some, there's been men that have come to me and have not been able to, heal from toxic relationships or even detach. They've had this relationship with a woman which they know is toxic, but they can't let go of. So here they are, they're still continuing to see them, not as really boyfriend and girlfriend, but they're still connected, which is is preventing them from moving on, because they don't know how to amicably release themselves, and move on to what they really want, rather than staying in an unhealthy relationship.
Thank you for that.
Yes, so that's it's all beautiful. I mean, I have different situations, but the ultimately is seeing the transformation and the smiles on their faces, and they come back to me married or with children, and just stuff like that. It's just beautiful.
That's great. All right. Now, in your previous explanation, I think you did make mention of trauma that men faced.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say a little as to what might actually be leading to this trauma they face in their relationship that you then help them to work on?
Okay. Well, it can be it can be a number of things, and it may, usually it's relationship based, and it could be, with parents, it could be with an uncle, with siblings, with other siblings, that's in their family. So when I work with my clients, we work through all the emotions, and the main emotion that obviously, is the forefront, I say is the main emotion that sits in front of all the other emotions, and that is anger. Okay, so anger is not a bad thing, okay? But anger needs to be released. It needs to be released in a healthy way. And my process that I use, it's not invasive. It's where you get the learnings from the experiences that you've had. So rather than sitting in the event, you're looking at it from a different perspective. And that's where the healing is, because when you have someone that sits in those emotions for too long, it's like they're drowning in that. They can't get up for air and heal and release the emotion, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. All right.
So
now, please go.
That's where, the trauma and all those events, right? They just piggyback from the time something happened when you were 5, 6, whatever age, and then something happened at 10, and then something happened at 16 with your first girlfriend. They all piggyback on one another. And now here you are 40, 45, 50, I don't know. And you have an accumulation, a chain of all these events that have just, piggybacked. And of course, by the time you're 40, 50, anything's going to just trigger you, and you're just going to explode.
A new client come to you for consultation, for work on how to get better relationship, or maybe you are the one that contact this person. Mm-hmm. So a relationship, I think, is something very deep sometimes, no? In that it's not the open level conversation, no? It's a deep rooted conversation, because you're going to have to go inside. It's an intimate type of conversation.
Absolutely.
So by that, I mean, how do you get them to reveal, like just go naked and tell you what is inside their mind? Tell me about that process.
Well, I'm just me, Obehi. I guess I just ask them, what are they there? Why are they here? Like, why are you here today? Like, tell me what your main concern, because usually, these clients are reaching out to me. When they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? So not everybody's at that stage and confident enough to go out and reach out for help. So I just am myself, and I listen. I ask, a series of questions. I find out their pain points, what's really bothering them, and obviously in the language that they use and what they're repeating back to me. And they might be repeating the same feeling or emotion, but of different situations. Do you know what I'm saying? So there I can understand their language and where their pain's coming from. And then, we go a little bit deeper. And then, of course, I, create a program. I say, okay, well, this sounds like this is happening. And then they come back to me and say, yeah, well, that's exactly how I feel, and we just, it's very conversational. I keep it very simple, and I keep it very real, because when I speak to people, when I speak to men, I am very, very present. I don't have distractions. It's like this intuitive knowing, and sometimes it's not good, because I'm very much an empath and I can feel their pain. I mean, sometimes I've had situations where I've had to refrain myself from actually feeling any emotion or crying, because their pain is so great that it vibrates in my body. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can you please explain that?
Yeah. So I am very sensitive and very much an empath. So I have to also, understand that I have to protect myself, but I feel their pain. And then I put it back to them in words that they understand, that, hey, how did you know I'm feeling that? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't even know how to explain it. I just feel it. I feel in it. I could tell you where your pain is, right in your heart, you know what I mean? Or down in your solar plexus or something like that. Yeah. So I guess it's a gift that I have. And that in itself, when particularly a male client can sense that in me, ultimately women are nurturers, right? So we're able to, I guess, understand and deliver a message like in a language that maybe they're yearning for too, from, I guess, their mothers, I guess. I get firm as well, don't get me wrong, but in that initial consultation, it's all about listening and asking the right questions.
Listening and asking the right question, that is very important.
Hmm.
Now, that make me I was just thinking aloud, looking at in the church. Are you a Catholic?
Yes, I am. I am
Okay,
a
all right.
born Catholic.
Okay, that's good. So you understand what I'm going to talk about now. So it's like when you go to confession, you see the Holy Father who is going to listen to all the confession of the entire parish, the entire parishioners, no?
Yes.
And every Saturday or Sunday, he's going to listen to all this story that people are telling him or her. And these are not usually very beautiful stories, because if they are beautiful story, you won't go there to talk. You are saying something horrible that you have done. Now, when you download all this information into the head of this one person, what does this person do? Do they have any pain? Do they feel it? Do they worry? Or do they, okay, at the end of the day, they just cancel it. They don't have, it doesn't enter into them. Because there are this an entrance into our subconscious, no? The eyes, the mouth, the nose, the ear. We don't really block them. Because when they enter, no? Then how do you deal with it? So I was listening when you say that at the point you try not to feel the pain. So I'm trying to understand that. Can you please explain a little bit? When you absorb all this information from the people, how do you do so that they don't enter you, they don't affect you? That's what I'm asking.
I know that's something I've had to learn, Obehi, just because I am so sensitive. I guess it's just my nature. I do care a lot. And before I used to take it on and feel very sick, okay, because I just wanted to help everybody, which I still want to help everybody. But what happens now, and I've learned to still, have empathy for that person, have compassion. But after I have a conversation with someone, I then release it. Like I surrender it to God. For me, it's God. Okay. For some, it's, washing their hands and cleansing themselves. It's symbolic. But for me, I either pray for that person, release them, and lovingly shed light on, their journey. Because, there are some people that don't want to work with me, and that's okay. They're not ready yet. And then there's those that are ready and they're very needy. And of course, I can give them enough that I don't overwhelm them, but it doesn't deplete me either. So the best way that I deal with that is praying and, sending them loving light and healing.
You are also a hypnotherapist, right?
Yes.
Okay. What does that mean? Help us to understand, what does be a hypnotherapist?
Okay, so hypnosis basically is a state. We all go in and out of hypnosis. Okay, basically, when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed, you are feeling that awake, asleep state, right? That is hypnosis. Or if you're driving a car and you miss your turn because you're focused on the road and your thoughts are wherever, and all of a sudden you've missed the turn, okay? You've gone into a trance, a light trance, and that's a form of hypnosis. So when I take my clients through a hypnotherapy session, I put them in a trance, and there's all different levels. There's alpha, delta, theta, and it depends on how deep we're going as to how deep I take them into that sleep awake state. So you can actually hear everything that's going on or being said, and you are in control of whether you want to stop that session or not. I don't do anything that the client, because obviously before the session, there's a lot of cognitive conversation, a little bit of coaching, and then we take them through the state of hypnosis. It's a powerful tool where we can enter the subconscious mind because the critical mind is at bay. You're relaxed. You're able to cut through that critical mind to get into the subconscious mind and put new suggestions, removing limiting beliefs, and putting, the things that you want rather than focusing on the things that you don't want. So that's what hypnosis is.
Well, the average person still do not know how you can get to that level in that. Okay, when you make example of the dream, or if you go to bed and waking up, okay, a semblance of understanding somebody can have it. But to somebody who come to you now with a problem, how you are able to take the person to the alpha or delta, like you were saying, can you explain that a little bit to somebody who do not understand?
So how do I do it? Okay, so basically, I do work online, so I don't actually have to be with you. I get that client to be in a very comfortable position, whether it be in a chair, an armchair, or laying down, preferably more sitting up or sort of slightly laying back. And I start talking to that person. I get them in a very relaxed state. I get them to, first of all, focus on, a spot on the wall and relax their mind through the way I speak to them, have them slow down their breathing, which slows down, the alpha waves in their brain as well. And then, it depends on how long it will take me to relax them, because, some people take a little longer than other people, and to get them in a state of just total letting go, relaxation, and then, taking them through a journey. It's a bit like a journey, actually, a hypnotic session. Yeah. Maybe what we can do sometime, Obehi, I can do a session on you, or I could actually do a group hypnotic session that your audience may want to listen to.
Wow, that would be lovely. We can arrange for that at the end of this podcast. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
And maybe giving you a session so you can actually experience and share with your audience how it really feels. I love it. I love having hypnosis done on me. It's helped me tremendously in a lot of my journey and my healing as well. I just think it's just the best thing. But of course, you have to have a good rapport with the person that's doing it, because you are really trusting that person with your mind. So, having said that, your client, my clients, obviously I build rapport with them that they trust me enough to, work with them, particularly with their mind. So this is what I say to people, when you are going to have hypnosis, make sure that, you know that person, or you feel comfortable with that person, because that is very, very important. But you'll know anyway. If you're not feeling comfortable, you'll know. And of course, you won't even relax to that state of, a nice alpha state, delta state, because your inner knowing will tell you so.
What if there is no trust there? I mean, is there risk in going into a hypnotic therapy? Is there a kind of risk to people why they should take some precaution or something like that?
No, there's no risk. But, if that client doesn't believe in it or is not comfortable, and that person's resistant, well, it's not going to work, like anything. it's just not going to work, because you are too much in your critical mind. And, the critical mind is what's going to stop that person from getting relaxed to actually open up and allow whatever needs to be healed through, hypnosis in the subconscious mind.
Okay. And I want to understand that for somebody to be able to do this hypnosis, you need to undergo some kind of training, right? It is something, is it enough to believe it, or you need to undergo some training to be able to tap into this um, inner fortress in the human being? I want to put it like that.
No, training. I mean, I trained nearly 2 years for this. So this is a very intense. I know there's a lot of courses out there that offer, weekend workshops and you become a hypnotherapist. Honestly, I don't know how that really works, and I'm not really interested, because I know it took me like 2 years, nearly 2 years, and I'm still studying. I still do, refresher courses, and I'm still doing updates and everything. You can't simply learn in a weekend what I've learnt in a year and a half to 2 years. So definitely, someone who has to be certified, accredited by a union as well, is very, very important, because it's not to be taken lightly, of course. What can go wrong? Well, of course, if that person, is not qualified to know how to, bring you back, that can be dangerous as well. Yeah, definitely. But, it's very rare. As I said, within yourself that you're not feeling comfortable. So, you can stop the session anytime you want. Yeah.
Is it like planting a kind of idea into your head? This concept of brainwashing, or something like that. Is it how it works? Of course, now uh, of the company of Elon Musk, no, Neuralinks, and all this idea of being able to tap into the brain, but this time planting in a chip into the human skull, and from there able to assess the neuro behavior and all that. Is it something similar to that,
Yes.
or yeah?
Well, yeah, because you're changing the known associations, because, as I said, between the ages of 0 to 7 is where a lot of your known associations, what grew up knowing, that's been embedded in that subconscious mind. For example, I don't know, you grew up that you had dessert after a meal. Do you know what I mean? Have ice cream, for example. So you associate ice cream. If I eat all my food, I can have ice cream. So there's an association that I have to have all my food first before I have my ice cream. Do you know what I'm saying? So particularly, for example, when people want to lose weight, there's a lot of inbuilt known associations of what their relationship with food was when they were younger, how they were treated, whether they were given lollies all the time for being good, or food was, scarce. All these different things come to play as an adult. So, these are what we call known associations.
Yeah, great. Now, apart from hypnosis, are there other tools that you use that help you to be able to do your work that maybe you might like to share with us?
Yeah, I do have a big toolbox. I call it a toolbox. Another tool is NLP, neuro linguistic programming, of course, which is very, very effective. Also, emotional freedom technique, which is what they call tapping. I'm not sure if you know that, where you're tapping on the meridians, the different meridians on the body, which bring signals to the brain and help you heal, change your state, does amazing things. It's very, very different. Yeah, very
Different from
different.
NLP. Can you say something about like how that will really help the individual to achieve what they want to achieve? In this case, maybe a more positive relationship is?
With what, the emotional freedom technique, or the
Yes.
yeah. With emotional freedom technique is a way of releasing emotions, releasing, deep-seated pain, particularly, and not only emotional pain, but also chronic pain. You can actually heal yourself through tapping on these meridians on your body, and of course using a language that is going to be embedded into your brain, and the tapping together just creates amazing results. Yeah, I've been actually doing that on my father because he's not been too well of late, and that's really been helping him a lot.
These techniques that you know of, are there something that are sort of new in the recent time, or is it we have always used them even in the ancient? Can you say anything about that?
I think it's probably just been, developed, over the years. It's been around for years, but I think even in ancient times, touch, in itself is healing. So, it goes back to, I guess, massage and, hugs. And I mean, all that is very, very healing. But the whole emotional freedom technique, I don't know a lot about the real history and how far back it does go back. But definitely, as they've been studying the body and the meridians in the body, they see the correlation between mind and body. It's all one. For years, they thought the mind and body were separate, but it's not. It's just so interwound and connected that, we have the power to heal ourselves. We have the power to heal any dis-ease in our bodies.
Thank you for that. Okay, now people that are listening to you, perhaps they want to connect with you, and you have offer. Of course, the Gentleman Square is available for all of the things that you are talking about, but they don't know how to connect with you yet. So we give you this few seconds to advertise yourself, connect with people. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Obehi. Well, you can contact me at thegentlemansquare.com. I do have a website there. If you want to have a consultation, I give a complimentary 30-minute, what I call insight call, where we can, sit together and have a little chat. It doesn't have to go anywhere. You can ask me questions. If you do want help, maybe you may want to see how I can help you. And it's a great time to, connect with me, and I can give you a full rundown. Also on social media, I have a lot of free content on YouTube, The Gentleman Square, Instagram, Facebook. I have some men's group that is really great. I have 2 different men's group. One's called the Rock Solid Relationships for Men, and the other one is Stop Attracting Toxic Women. So you can contact me there, my email, any of the social media. And of course, I do have a free ebook that anyone can download, and it's 5 juicier ways to make connections with a woman. So you might want to get yourself a free copy. And I do have a book on Amazon as well, which is Master the Language of Attraction for Men. Yeah, which is a great book. If you want to get yourself a quick read, very informative.
All right. Thank you so much, Stefania. All right. Talking about that queen, that lady that the men want to have to themselves, what are the strategies do you recommend for them? Maybe 2 or 3 things that they need to do to be able to attract the woman of their life.
Okay. I often say, just be you. Don't try and be someone that you're not. Trying to impress a woman and overdoing it, she's going to smell it, see it, come from a mile away. Do you know what I mean? So, try and be you. Keep it fun and light. Have fun. Keep her laughing. Really make sure that you make her laugh and have fun together. I think that's what's really, really important, and that's what's going to really, notice the genuine you. And of course, create confidence. And if you're struggling to have that confidence, reach out and get some help. help yourself build that unshakable, unstoppable confidence that I, so like to say and instill in my clients.
That's good. All right, now moving towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do women really want to see in a man? What are these characteristics that make them want to approach this man and say, okay, this is the man I want to have for myself?
Well, different women are different, I guess. But, in general, women want a strong man, okay? They want a strong, confident man, but they want a man that's also connected to his sensitive side. So I always say to men, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, know when to be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to show that vulnerability, because women love that. They just are drawn to that because they can see that you're real. You got feelings, you can get down and share your emotions and maybe even shed a tear. There is nothing wrong with that. I know, men have been taught to men don't cry, but that's a myth. I really think that that's a myth. So yeah, be confident, be strong, and be you, and be generous with your time. Don't be a walkover, of course. Be able to set healthy boundaries, but be a good listener. I say that to men. Don't be just present and not present with your ears and your heart. Okay, because a lot of times women complain about this, that that he's there but he's not really there, if you know what I mean.
He's there, he's not really there. That is not a good thing for men, because you're going
He's
to lose
physically
that.
there, he's physically there, but he's not emotionally there. And women will pick that up, and I explain that in my book as well. Where if you whether you're taking her out on a date, first, second date, third, or whether you're married, be present. And if you're having that conversation, put away the phones, put away the distractions and get present with her.
That's good. All right, Stefania, what would be your last statement here? Because we really have covered a lot of interesting conversation relating to relationship. I have to get the best type of relationship that we want, because nobody wants to be in a toxic relationship or in a relationship that is flat. No, we want to have the feeling, the sensation, because it makes us think. Now, what would be your final statement? It can be a message or anything you wanted to say. I didn't ask you. Please go.
Okay. Well, I really strongly say this to men: is know what you want. You'd be surprised how many men don't know what they want. Know your values, know what's important to you, know what your deal breakers are, be able to set healthy boundaries. This is all very important. Don't just go out there. It's like fishing, right? When you go out, a real fisherman will go out there with the right bait to go and catch the right fish. And if he hasn't got the right bait, he's just going to be drawing in all sorts of fish, right? So have a standard for yourselves. I mean, we say this to women, have a standard for yourself. I say this to men as well. Have a standard. What is it? What type of woman do you really want? How do you want to feel in this relationship? How do you want to be treated? All very important, because if you know what you want, you know where you're going. Don't know what you want, you don't know where you're going.
All right, dear Stefania, thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the time and the conversation. It's been great. I've really, really enjoyed it. Thank you, Obehi.
Thank you for that. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.